Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be talking about the upcoming pattern in general. There is still a few snowstorm risks and in general pretty large storms that we do need to talk about. Overall, things will be quieter. We've touched on this for quite a while. There will be quite a bit of Arctic air making its way into the eastern United States, as hard as that will be to believe over the next few days, as it's going to be beautiful. Mostly 50s and 60s for most folks, even 70s the further south you go. It's going to be beautiful, but there is some Arctic air right behind it that we do need to talk about as well. Anyways, before I get into this video, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, do you think that winter really is slowing down, or do you think we're going to see another active period, a lot like what we saw in January into very, very early here in February? Or do you think we really are kind of landing that plane, if you will? Let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are, and I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Let's get straight into this video, and first things first, we're taking a look at our current radar imagery as always. I had a lot of people complaining actually that I don't talk about the Southwest in yesterday's video. I just want to explain something real quick. My videos range from about 8 minutes all the way up to about 20 minutes long. It's really the really long ones usually when I talk way too long probably. But if there's no precipitation going on in these areas, I'm not going to zoom into it. So for instance, right here I can indicate that basically this entire region I will not be zooming into today at least. And probably none of these regions either, because there's nothing going on. I would zoom into it and be like, okay, there's nothing here, and then move on. So there's no point in even bothering with it. That's why usually in the beginning of these I indicate the areas of precipitation, like here in the northwest. Here over the north central we have some showers, and then over the northeast we do have a lingering snowstorm there, as well as a pretty big coastal storm taking place offshore of the east coast. This is impacting Florida still to this point. So those are the areas we're going to zoom into and talk about, because that's where the precipitation is happening. Outside of this circle, there is no precipitation happening. Therefore, no point in really zooming in at all. Now, on the model guidance, we will talk about pretty much everything that is going to happen or looks like it could happen. But again, there might not be anything for these regions. Frequently, there's not. I mean, it's pretty common for there to not be anything going on for these regions. So that's why it doesn't really get talked about. So I do apologize for that, but really, I only have time to talk about the active weather that's ongoing. I hope that makes sense. Let's zoom into the Northwest, because we always do start here. And the Pacific Northwest is basically the opposite of the Southwest at times, where really there's precipitation all the time. So every single day we end up zooming in here because we do have this precipitation here. Even some heavier showers. You can see this one move down the coast actually with some yellows and oranges involved there, indicating some heavier rainfall. Now these ones kind of dissipated, but they were featuring some snowfall up here for the mountainous regions just to the east of Seattle. We have very tall mountains there. That's a region I've never been to, but one that I would definitely love to visit. So mostly we have had some snow and rain showers, spotty but happening for these regions. And as we take a little bit of a more southern view, we can see that near Utah, we have had some snowfall showers going on at times right near Salt Lake City. It's also impacted portions of far eastern Nevada, far southern Idaho, and then far southwestern Wyoming as well. This has been just some spotty snow showers, and they were pretty heavy at points, but they kind of dissipated over the last hour or so as we're taking a look at those. Now, over the north central United States, we do have these kind of mixed precipitation showers. Some of them are rainfall, some of them are snowfall. And they're kind of moving in a motion like this, so just like this. So we're seeing them kind of turn as they head into these regions. But this is impacting states like North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska there, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, especially there, even the Lower Peninsula of Michigan, Indiana, and Illinois there. Maybe even northern Missouri as well. So this is impacting a lot of states in a pretty large region, actually. I would say that the lakes are actually enhancing these regions of snowfall and rainfall, I would say, that's taking place, because we have seen these intensify as they get up here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And the thing about the Upper Peninsula of Michigan is you have a lake on each side, so you get that impacts that region specifically a lot. I would say, in my opinion, that area gets impacted the most by the lakes and the climate that creates there. So these are some spotty showers. I wouldn't expect that too much of that is accumulating. It is moving quite quickly. Maybe for these regions we've seen some dusting to maybe a little bit more amounts where it's kind of stuck around in there. But outside of that, this is moving quite quickly. Temperatures are pretty marginal, so I wouldn't expect much to come from that. Now, quite the opposite here in Maine, where we've really seen this moderate to heavy snowfall lingering through the overnight hours, and that's been going on much, much longer than that even. And we've seen this really stick around. I would say within this yellow circle, there has been, especially, once you're kind of more inland, like north of that line I just drew in here, I would say inches and inches have accumulated for that region. If you do happen to live there, I know it's a very scarce region where not a lot of people live, but if you do happen to live there, let us know what kind of accumulations you dealt with. But I would guess that it is multiple inches of snowfall, maybe even approaching 10 inches there, based on this coastal storm that they've been dealing with, where obviously it was an all snow event for up here, where frequently, even when there's rainfall happening down for these regions, this northern region of Maine is just a completely different climate as it reaches far north, far further north than even the northern tip of New Hampshire or New York and Vermont, where even those states are very cold, but you can tell how much further north obviously Maine goes than those states' northern tips. So that's why it's such a different climate basically north of that line. It's crazy. Let's see. So we have to go down to the southeast as well, where we do have, well, I'll zoom out a little bit. We do have this precipitation offshore. I wouldn't be surprised if at points it does start to try to impact these regions, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't really either. So that could swing either way. Don't be surprised if it rains for a little bit, though. Nothing crazy. We do have pretty persistent rainfall taking place in the southern half of Florida there. You can see it was more widespread, and we did have that training going on where we probably had lots and lots of rainfall going on, especially near Cape Coral and south of there as well. Beautiful areas, obviously, but lots of rainfall took place. And now it's mostly down here in the very far southern, I'd say the southern fourth of Florida, where we've seen very heavy rainfall moving in, and that's where the rainfall is still persisting as the areas kind of north of here have really dissipated. So you'll see these areas really dissipate in a second. Yeah, so it's coming to a close for those regions, but south of there, we're still seeing the tail end of this. I think during the morning commute this morning, so I would say 8, 9, 10 a.m., it'll still be around, but after that point, it does seem like we are coming to a close where this is kind of ending. Anyway, what we're going to do here is we're going to move on. We're going to take a look at the model guidance, see what this warm-up is going to bring alongside that cool down that's going to come in after it. Possible snowstorm around Valentine's Day that we really need to pay attention to as well. There is so much to be watching, guys, and we need to talk about all of it within this video here as we move into the model guidance. All right, now here is the modeled guidance. We're going to be walking through our European model, and then we're going to compare that to our GFS model because there is a pretty big difference actually with what we've been seeing on these models. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the Canadian model to actually be a tiebreaker because the Canadian model actually does agree with one of these models. The two major models here disagree. That's not going to be a perfect indication of which side is going to be correct, but it is kind of a sign that one might be a little bit more onto things, but not always. So we're going to track this here. This is by the time we're reaching about Thursday or tomorrow from the time I'm making this video. The pattern is going to look a bit like this. What we're going to see is warm air shoving its way up this way. So we're going to see this Gulf air start to win over the weekend, but not beyond. So let's watch this play out. That trough moves out, and you see this right here. If you're north of there, don't count on any warm air heading in, but the jet stream is heading in just like that, and this warm air from the Gulf is making its way in just like this. So this is that southeast ridge that we've been waiting for ever since the winter forecasts, right? And now we're kind of seeing that pattern play out. It is a little too late, obviously, type situation. I know here in Virginia, it's going to be 62 Thursday. Keep in mind our wintertime average highs are in the lower 50s. Friday is going to be 63, and then Saturday is going to be 66. So I do know that here on this northern end, right below the jet stream, it actually is going to be above normal temperatures, just right in this region. So let alone areas, all throughout here, it's going to be quite warm for quite a few folks. So jet stream's doing about a bit like this, or actually better yet, it's doing a bit like this, where it's kind of centered about right here. And then we have this warm air battling in on the eastern end, kind of winning out. We do have some precipitation trying to develop along that as well. I think that's also worth noting. And then as we head through the weekend, we do see that this trough starts to win out, and it does start to push eastward. So we're seeing that take place here. This is going to be about 5 a.m. on Sunday, February 13th. And this all in here is actually our coastal storm. All that energy. It hasn't really come together here on this European model. And what we're going to see is it's going to kind of slide off. So let's watch this play out. Kind of just slides off innocently. We do see some snowfall trying to develop in here. And this is only 100 hours out. This is going to be about Sunday morning time frame. So Saturday into Sunday. So that's going to be the 12th into the 13th here on the European model. Timing could be a little bit different, but we see that snowfall slide off. And then kind of what we're left with is just frigid air. Not a lot of snowfall. There might be some snow showers here according to the European model, better yet. But this storm is going to be all said and done. And that trough is kind of just going to stick around. And then by the time we're reaching, this is going to be about Thursday of next week, we do get a similar pattern, maybe even warmer here with this southeast ridge really taking over. Trough is centered about like this. So this is an awkward jet stream that's really diving into that region. And what we see happen is a big snowstorm starts up, kind of like the one we saw most recently, where the south central United States gets in on some of that wintry weather, which is so strange because we saw multiple storms like this last February. And it seems like this February we've already seen one that kind of looks like this. And now we might see another storm like this where Texas and Oklahoma and Kansas gets impacted. It's so weird to see multiple storms like this, but that one kind of develops and lingers, and then what we see happen is it moves up like this. And then basically anything to the east of there is going to have very warm temperatures moving in. Don't be surprised if we see severe weather in this scenario too, right there where there's a ton of warmth in here and there's a ton of cold in here. You know, once those start to squeeze in, that's when we start to see that spring-like severe weather. So we're going to have to watch for that as well, unfortunately. And that moves up, and that's kind of all we're taking a look at in this pattern. Let's compare. Let's compare here. Sorry for that voice crack. Let's take a look here at the GFS model. So obviously warm up, cool down. Here is that coastal storm, and this is by the time we're reaching about 2 a.m. on Sunday. We have this all just broad precipitation. Okay, so that is worth noting. It is pretty broad here. We do have snowfall kind of setting in for some of these regions. Nothing major. But what we do see take place is instead of the European model where we saw it kind of slide off, we're going to see the GFS model, as opposed to the European model, try to kind of take it more up the coast. It's a big difference, by the way, what the storm does there. So let me switch us back to the European model and get us where the storm happens so we can see where it goes. Yeah. So you see how it kind of slides off and it's too far offshore? Let's take a look at the GFS model again. Heads up the coast. So obviously, from the naked eye, you can tell this one is much closer to being a major snowstorm for the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, and portions of the Southeast. As we see heavy snowfall develop in there, a true nor'easter, really. I mean, let's zoom into the east here, but I want you guys to know, like, really after this point, this low pressure system does develop as it heads north and well into the 990s. So we see it go from 1,004. Probably here it's like a pretty high pressure, not very low at all. But it gets all the way down to 995 at least by that point, bringing snowfall for all of these regions here on the GFS model. And again, the GFS model has not been a joke this season. I've been trying to iterate that for you guys, but really it has been a really good model so far this year. And generally, this would be a major snowstorm, as you can see, with the dusting, if anything, in the grays. In the blues, 2 to 6 inches of snowfall. Purples would be 6 to 10, and then these pinks would be 10 to even 20 inches of snowfall. So we would maybe have a pocket of that going on for these regions. And this is a pretty, this is what I would call a similar storm to what we've seen so far this season, where a lot of the Mid-Atlantic, a lot of the Southeast gets involved, but also some of the more coastal regions in the Northeast getting a bit involved with it as well. This is realistic to me, just based on how this winter has gone, and I don't find it far-fetched at all. In some winters, I would be skeptical, but with how this one has gone again, it just leads me to feel more confident in this happening. So let's backtrack this. I'm going to take an eastern view here on the Canadian model and the European model, because this is the main storm we're talking about today, obviously. Let's get them all to the same frame. I think that's going to be a good starting point. Let's do about 2 p.m. on Sunday. Okay, so there's the difference on the European model, GFS model. European model, GFS model. Keep in mind the low pressure system is within these circles. So you want to pay attention to where these are centered, the black circles there. So you see those on the I would say the low pressure center is about here by this point on the GFS model. When we take a look at the European model, it's about, I'll draw it in a different color so we don't get too confusing here. But it's more like here. So it's a good click south, obviously, at this point, and that is why it's much more suppressed. Let's get this is the Canadian model caught up. And once we get to 2 p.m. on this is going to be Sunday, we can see the low pressure system is actually kind of north of the GFS model too. So overall, the Canadian model is a lot closer to where the GFS model is as opposed to the European model, because the European model is much more suppressed. The Canadian model is a little bit more bullish with this, keeping it much further north. Let's actually watch this one play out as well. It keeps it as a weaker storm than the GFS model, but we do get the entire eastern seaboard included with some snowfall here on the Canadian model, and that's definitely a bit different than the European model. So total snowfall would be some areas of 2 to 6, maybe some isolated 6 to 10. And then as we take a look at the GFS model, obviously I told you guys it's a much, much more major solution. And then let's take a look at this European model's total snowfall, which would be even less than what the kind of more bullish Canadian model shows. And the interesting thing here is, remember I told you guys the Canadian model is much further north. I got to switch away from this blue though, because that's going to confuse me. It's much further north. It keeps the heart of the storm in there. And when we take a look at the European model, you can see it keeps it much further south, like on the southern half of this, because the European model's low pressure system was much further south. So you can see how that impacts every single little detail of the storm there. That's great visualization there of how that impacts everything. Thus far, the GFS model has the most major solution, clearly, with the storm being far more major than either of the other models show. Only time we'll be able to tell if this is going to be the correct solution, or if the GFS, or sorry, better yet, if even the European model will be correct, or maybe even the Canadian model. We have a lot to talk about, guys. I hope you will stick with us. So be sure to subscribe and look for the most up-to-date uploads every single morning, because we're going to be talking about this storm daily up until about Valentine's Day once this storm is happening. Anyway, for today's confidence tab, clearly I have no ability to move up in this, so we're sticking at a 4 out of 6. For today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, when do you think our next major snowstorm will be? And James Marr said, I believe the Saturday-Monday timeframe needs to be watched for a potential major snowstorm for the East Coast. I know a lot of you complain about me picking James Marr every single day, but I look at every single comment, and he's typically the only one that answers my comment of the day, basically very specifically to what I ask. Keeps it short, simple, and straight to the point. If any of you decided to do basically what he's doing and keep it very short and simple with your opinion, I would be picking somebody else every single day. And I would come back to James Marr, because obviously he's always really picking really good comments. But I would try to rotate through people and kind of share the love a little bit. But, you know, today, for instance, he's the only one that answered it in a short and sweet fashion. So I'm forced to basically pick him. So if you want to compete with James Marr, answer it in a very short and sweet fashion. For today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons, Bill Crates, James Wade, Dovin Eagle, Lure the Pan, Mandy Birchfield, Patrick Strickland, Dave Scott, and Donna Carnes as well. I would also like to thank our diamond patrons, Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Cuddle, Catbite, Charles Stinnett, Bill Dallas, Gary's, and John Colisi also. I would also like to thank our channel members, Catbite, Stephen Van, and Jeremy Cox as well. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I'll see you guys in the next video.